I thought the weirdest thing about that pool party was that nobody was allowed to swim after midnight. I was wrong. The weirdest thing was discovering the host had already planned who would drown before any of us even arrived. I still have nightmares about that night. Not because I saw a ghost, because I'm no longer sure the girl everyone said drowned there 20 years ago was the first person to die in that pool. This happened during my senior year of college. One of my classmates, Ethan, invited about 15 of us to his uncle's house for an end-of-summer pool party. I barely knew him. We'd worked together on a group project, exchanged numbers, and that was about it. When he invited me, he laughed and said, "Only rule is everyone's got to stay until midnight. Family tradition." It sounded strange, but everyone else laughed too. Nobody questioned it. The house was about an hour outside town, surrounded by tall trees and old stone walls. It looked expensive but oddly neglected. The pool was enormous, much bigger than you'd expect for a private home, with deep blue tiles and a diving board that looked older than the house itself. When we arrived, Ethan's uncle greeted everyone. He had to be in his 70s, friendly enough. But every few minutes he'd stare at the pool like he was expecting something. The first thing I noticed was a bronze plaque mounted beside the patio. It read, "In loving memory of Claire." No last name, no dates, just Claire. I asked Ethan about it. He shrugged. "My uncle's daughter. What happened?" "Drowned," he answered so casually that I immediately regretted asking. The party started normally. Music, food, people throwing beach balls into the water. Someone brought floating speakers. Everything felt relaxed, except for Ethan's uncle. Every time someone jumped into the deep end, he'd stop whatever he was doing and watch until they surfaced. Not casually, intensely, like he couldn't breathe until their head came back above the water. Later that afternoon, I wandered inside looking for a bathroom. The hallway walls were covered in framed family photos. One picture caught my attention. It showed 6 teenagers standing around the exact same pool. I recognized none of them, except one girl looked unbelievably similar to a girl from our class named Madison. Same blonde hair, same freckles, same smile. I stared for several seconds. When I came back outside, Madison was laughing by the diving board. I looked from her to the old photo through the window. The resemblance was unsettling. That evening, another classmate, Josh, joked that Ethan's uncle kept calling people by the wrong names. "I swear he just called me David." Madison laughed. "He called me Claire." Everyone assumed he was just old. Then another girl spoke up. "He called me Emily." Someone else said, "He called me Mark." The names meant nothing to us. At least then. Around sunset, the uncle gathered everyone together. He insisted on taking one group photo in front of the pool. He carefully moved people around. "No, you stand here." "You switch places." "No, not there." He wasn't arranging us by height. He seemed to have a very specific layout in mind. When the picture was finished, he stared at it for a long time before quietly saying, "Perfect." Something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. Dinner ended around 10. People were drinking, some were swimming. Others sat around the fire pit. I noticed Ethan arguing quietly with his uncle near the garage. I couldn't hear everything, just one sentence. "We talked about this." His uncle answered, "It has to be right this time." I assumed it was family drama, nothing more. At exactly 11:45 p.m., the uncle walked onto the patio carrying an old photo album. He asked everyone to gather around. Inside were dozens of pictures from the summer Claire died. He pointed to different people: my daughter, her best friend, my nephew, my neighbor. As he turned the pages, I realized something horrifying. Every single person in those photographs looked remarkably similar to someone at our party. Not identical, but close enough that once you noticed it, you couldn't stop seeing it. Madison resembled Claire. Josh resembled David. Another friend resembled Emily. Even Ethan looked almost identical to one of the boys. Nobody spoke. The uncle smiled. "You kids look just like them." Someone nervously laughed. He didn't. Then he said something I'll never forget. I spent years finding all of you. The backyard became completely silent. Ethan immediately grabbed the album. That's enough. The uncle stood up. No, they deserve to know. Ethan looked embarrassed. My uncle's dementia has been getting worse. But the old man kept talking. I looked through schools, social media, yearbooks. I knew eventually I'd find people who looked close enough. Madison stepped backward. What are you talking about? His eyes filled with tears. I just wanted one more perfect night. Nobody knew how to respond. Ethan apologized over and over. Most of us assumed his uncle had become confused by grief. It was sad, uncomfortable, but not dangerous. Then the lights around the pool suddenly switched off. Only the underwater lights remained. The old man whispered, "It happened exactly like this." His voice shook, just before midnight. Nobody moved. He looked toward Madison. "Claire." Madison immediately answered, "My name isn't Claire." He didn't seem to hear her. He slowly walked toward the diving board. Ethan ran after him. "Uncle, stop." The old man kept talking. "You all left her alone." His breathing became uneven. She kept calling for help. Then he pointed at every person around the pool. "You all watched." His words made no sense. The people he accused had been dead or elderly long before we were born. Suddenly, he climbed onto the diving board. Everyone shouted for him to come down. Instead, he looked into the water, smiled, and jumped. The splash echoed across the yard. Seconds passed. He didn't come back up. Ethan dove in immediately. Then 2 more people followed. They pulled him out. He was alive, barely. Paramedics arrived within minutes. As they loaded him into the ambulance, he grabbed Ethan's wrist. I remembered. Those were the last words I heard him say. He died at the hospital before sunrise. Police ruled it a suicide attempt complicated by his age and medical condition. The party became something none of us ever wanted to discuss again. A month later, I received a message from Ethan. He wanted to apologize. Instead, he asked if we could meet. When we did, he brought the photo album. I found something. Hidden inside the back cover was a folded newspaper clipping. The headline wasn't about Claire. It was about another teenager, David. According to the article, David disappeared the night Claire drowned. His body was never found. Authorities believed he'd run away after failing to save her. Case closed. Ethan looked pale. My uncle wrote notes in the margin. I opened the clipping. Beside the article, in shaky handwriting, were 6 words. They blamed the wrong child. There were more pages underneath. Private journal entries. His uncle admitted he'd witnessed the accident from inside the house. Claire slipped from the diving board. David jumped in after her. Neither could swim well enough. The other teenagers panicked. Instead of calling for help immediately, they argued over who would get blamed. Minutes passed. Only Claire's body was recovered. David disappeared. Everyone assumed he'd fled. The surviving teenagers agreed never to admit how long they waited before calling 911. Their silence protected them for decades. The resemblance between us and them wasn't supernatural. It was deliberate. His uncle had spent years finding young people who looked similar so he could recreate that night one last time. Not to haunt us, to force himself to confess before dementia erased the truth completely. I thought that was the end. Until 6 months later. Detectives reopened David's case after reading the journal. Divers searched the old property, not the pool, the abandoned well hidden behind the tree line. They found human remains. DNA confirmed they belonged to David. The medical examiner determined he hadn't drowned. He died from blunt force trauma. Someone had struck him after he climbed out of the water alive. The case officially remains unsolved, because every teenager present that night is now dead, except one, Claire's father, the man who wrote the journal. The injuries described in the report matched the type of heavy metal flashlight he admitted carrying while searching the property that night. Police couldn't prove he killed David. He couldn't defend himself either. Maybe he truly watched the tragedy unfold exactly as he described. Or maybe he accidentally, or deliberately, killed the only witness who knew what really happened, buried him in the well, and spent the next 20 years convincing himself that everyone else was responsible. Sometimes I look at our group photo from that party. The one he insisted had to be perfect. Every person is smiling, standing exactly where someone else stood on the night two teenagers vanished. And I can't stop wondering whether we were invited to a memorial or assembled as a jury for a confession that came 20 years too late. I didn't realize someone had been filming us until I saw a video of myself online that I never remembered anyone recording. The worst part wasn't that I was in it. It was that the camera had been focused on me long before I ever arrived at the pool party. I wish I had never clicked on it. This happened 2 summers ago, and I still don't know if the guy responsible ever got caught. A friend from work invited me to a pool party at his cousin's house. It wasn't one of those huge influencer parties. Maybe 25 people were there. Most of us barely knew each other. I almost didn't go because I had work early the next morning, but everyone kept saying it would just be a chill afternoon. The house sat at the end of a quiet neighborhood with a fenced backyard and an in-ground pool. Music was playing through portable speakers. People were grilling burgers. Kids from neighboring houses occasionally peeked over the fence before running off. It felt completely normal. I spent the first hour talking to people I'd never met before. There was one guy everyone seemed to recognize except me. His name was Kyle. He wasn't loud or awkward. Actually, he was the opposite. He carried a professional-looking camera around his neck and occasionally switched to a smaller handheld one. Someone joked, "Don't worry, Kyle records every party." Everyone laughed. I figured he was just the friend who liked making recap videos. He wasn't constantly filming, mostly short clips, people jumping into the pool, someone flipping burgers, friends laughing. Nothing unusual. At one point, he asked if he could get a group shot. Nobody cared. Phones were already everywhere anyway. After sunset, people started turning on floating pool lights. The atmosphere changed. Less talking, more drinking, more people floating in the water. Kyle kept filming, not aggressively, just always nearby. I remember climbing out of the pool to grab another drink. As I walked past the patio table, I noticed several memory cards sitting next to his camera bag. There were at least 8 of them. That seemed excessive for a backyard party. I joked, "Planning to shoot a movie?" He smiled without looking up. "I record everything." The answer sounded harmless. At least then. Around 9 o'clock, I realized my car keys were missing. I searched everywhere, my towel, my backpack, the kitchen, nothing. A few people helped me look. Finally, someone found them sitting on a shelf inside the garage. I was positive I hadn't gone into the garage all day. I figured maybe I'd accidentally dropped them while walking through earlier. I thanked everyone and forgot about it. The party wrapped up around 11. Kyle was still filming while people left. As I drove home, I remember seeing him standing alone near the gate, pointing his camera toward the driveway instead of the party. It seemed strange, but not enough to think twice. 3 weeks later, everything changed. I was scrolling through social media when someone from work sent me a message. "Dude, is this you?" There was a link. The account wasn't private. It posted cinematic videos from random parties. Thousands of followers. I clicked. The thumbnail showed our pool party. I watched. At first, it looked exactly like every highlight reel online. People laughing, splashing, music, slow motion dives. Then something caught my attention. The opening shot. It wasn't filmed at the party. It showed my apartment building, my car, me walking outside carrying a towel. The timestamp in the corner placed it almost 45 minutes before I even arrived. I paused the video. My stomach tightened. The next shot showed my car driving away. Then another camera angle somehow caught me stopping at a gas station. Then another angle showed me pulling into the neighborhood. None of that had happened at the party. Someone had been recording me before I got there. I checked the comments. Nobody else noticed. They were all talking about the pool or asking where the house was. I called the friend who invited me. "Who exactly is Kyle?" He sounded confused. "What do you mean?" "The guy with the camera." "Oh, he's Ryan's old friend. Does anyone actually know him?" Silence. I thought Ryan did. Ryan thought someone else invited Kyle. Nobody actually knew him well. That bothered all of us. The account disappeared 2 days later. Every video was deleted. I took screenshots before it vanished. I couldn't stop thinking about the footage outside my apartment. There was no way that happened by accident. I decided to visit Ryan. We watched the screenshots together. He looked genuinely shaken. I never noticed this. Neither had I, because the party clips distracted you. The opening sequence lasted only 12 seconds, just enough to establish me arriving. Unless you looked carefully, it seemed like part of the edit. Ryan contacted everyone who attended. Nobody knew Kyle's last name. Nobody had his phone number. One person remembered he drove a white SUV. Another remembered he said he freelanced as a videographer. Nothing useful. Then something even stranger happened. One of the girls from the party reached out privately. She asked if we could talk, not over text. We met at a coffee shop. She looked exhausted. She opened her phone and showed me something. My AirPods connected to a device after the party. I didn't understand. She explained. When she got home, her phone briefly displayed an unknown Bluetooth device she'd never seen before. Its saved name was just a string of numbers. She ignored it. But a week later, she noticed something missing. Her house key. She assumed she'd lost it. Then she remembered. She had clipped it to her beach bag during the pool party. She never found it. My heart sank. I thought about my car keys ending up in the garage. Neither of us spoke for a minute. We both reached the same conclusion. Someone hadn't simply been filming. Someone had been getting close enough to people's belongings without them noticing. I finally reported everything to the police. They took copies of the screenshots. The detective listened carefully. Then he asked one question that caught me off guard. "Did anyone lose anything besides keys?" I called everyone again. "Wallets? No. Phones? No. Jewelry?" One guy said his expensive sunglasses disappeared. Another woman couldn't find her spare house key after getting home. Most people assumed they'd misplaced things. Separately, none of it sounded alarming. Together, it painted a different picture. Weeks passed. No updates. Life slowly returned to normal, until October. The detective called. He asked if I could identify someone from a driver's license photo. It wasn't Kyle. The man had multiple aliases. He'd been arrested in another state after police searched a storage unit connected to him. Inside, they found dozens of hard drives, hundreds of labeled memory cards, thousands of hours of footage, not hidden cameras, handheld footage, public places, neighborhood events, birthday parties, community pools, graduations. He blended into gatherings where nobody questioned someone carrying professional camera equipment. He filmed people, followed some of them home, learned routines. Sometimes he stole spare keys. Sometimes he simply documented everything. The detective wouldn't tell me everything because the investigation was ongoing. But he did tell me one detail I still think about. My name wasn't on any folder, just a number. Apparently, every person he followed received one. The folder connected every clip: arrival, departure, car, home, friends, license plate, daily habits, like he was building complete profiles. I thought that was the end, until last winter. I was cleaning out an old email account. Buried in my spam folder was a message I'd never opened. It had arrived the morning after the pool party. No subject, no text, just one attachment, a still image. It wasn't from the party. It was taken through my apartment window that same night after I'd gotten home. I was asleep on my couch. The timestamp matched nearly 2:30 a.m. Police later confirmed it had probably been sent automatically from one of his fake email accounts before it was deleted. I kept asking myself the same question. How did he get that picture? Then I remembered something I'd completely forgotten. The night after the party, I woke up because I thought I'd heard my apartment door close. I searched every room. Nothing was missing. Nothing looked disturbed. I convinced myself I'd imagined it. The detective eventually told me they never found evidence that anyone had entered my apartment. Maybe the photo was taken through the uncovered living room window from outside. Maybe. I wanted to believe that. Then I looked closer at the image. On the coffee table beside me were my car keys. The same keys that had mysteriously ended up in the garage during the pool party. Attached to them was a small blue gym membership tag. Except, I didn't own that blue tag yet. I didn't sign up for that gym until almost 3 weeks after the party. I checked the membership paperwork. The dates were undeniable. Which means the photo couldn't have been taken the night after the party. It was taken weeks later, after someone already knew exactly where I lived. And somehow, despite everything that happened, I never noticed they had come back.